This is Chapter 18 from The Witch of Blackbird Pond. In dry clothes with some hot corn mush and molasses inside her, Kit leaned against the back of the settle and soaked in the warmth of the fire. Lightheaded with weariness and relief, she looked around the familiar room. How beautiful and safe it looked, with the sunshine slanting in the window. The regular breathing from Mercy's curtained bed sounded almost normal. Dr. Buckley had said that Judith might get up this morning. Rachel had consented to go up to her own bed for a short sleep, on their promise to waken her at once if Mercy should rouse, and Matthew was preparing to get back to his work. Watching him draw on his heavy books, Kit knew that she could not let him go without speaking. All night, just beyond the fringe of her thoughts, through the terror of the Huns and the long cold hours of waiting, she had cherished one small warming memory. There on the bench, it had been the one thing that had held her back when Nat had offered her a chance to escape. She had to make sure that this memory was rightfully hers. She got up shakily and went to stand before her uncle. "Uncle Matthew," she said softly, "I heard what you said last night to those people, and I want to thank you for it." "'Tis no matter," he answered gruffly. "But it is a matter," she insisted. "I've been nothing but a trouble to you from the beginning, and I don't deserve your standing up for me." His uncle studied her from under his bushy eyebrows. "'Tis true, I did not welcome you into my house," he said at last. "But this last week you have proved me wrong. You have spared yourself, Catherine. Our own daughters couldn't have done more. Suddenly, Kit wished with all her heart that she had never deceived this man. She would like to stand before him with a clear conscience. She was ashamed of the many times, more times than she could count, when she had skipped off and left her work undone. "I shall tell him some day," she vowed to herself, "when I am sure that Hannah is safe. And I will do my full share, beginning this very moment. I don't even feel tired anymore." She helped Judith into her clothes and drew a chair for her near the sunny window. She drew a great kettle of water from the well and set it to boil for the wash. She swept up and scuffed sand and spread a fresh layer in a fine pattern. She stirred up the corn cake for the midday meal. Hannah was safe, and Mercy was going to get well. That should be enough, and surely, if she worked hard enough, she could forget the strange feeling of emptiness, the haunting regret that a secret and lovely thing was gone forever. Matthew came back presently for the noon meal. Kit thrust the iron peel into the oven and drew out the corn cake, plump and golden and crisp about the edges, and Judith said the smell of it made her feel hungry for the first time. Mercy stirred and asked in a quiet, natural voice for a sip of water, and Rachel, haggard face, lightened with a smile. There was not alarmed this time by the knock on the door. Matthew went to answer it, and the others sat calmly at the table. They heard the scruff of boots in the hallway and a man's voice. "We have business with you, Matthew." "There is illness here," he answered. "This can't wait. Better summon your wife too, and that girl from Barbados. We'll be brief as we can." The men stood aside to let Rachel and Kit walk ahead into the company room. There were 4 callers, 1 deacon from the church, the constable of the town, and Goodman Cruff and his wife. They were not excited this morning. They looked hard and purposeful, and Goodwife Cruff's eyes glittered towards Kit with contempt and something else she could not interpret. I know you don't hold with witchcraft," the constable began, "but we've summat to say as may change your mind." "You arrested your witch?" asked Matthew with impatience. "Not that! The town's rid of that one for good." Matthew stared at him in alarm. "What have you done?" "Not what you fear. We didn't lay hands on the old woman. She slipped through our trap somehow. And we know how," hissed Goodwife Cruff. Kit felt a wave of fear that left her sick and dizzy. The deacon glanced at Goodwife Cruff uneasily. "I don't quite go along with them," he said, but I got to admit the thing looks quite mighty queer. We've counted the whole town this morning, ever since dawn. There's not a trace of her. Don't see how she could have gone far." "We know right enough. They'll never find her," broke in Goodwife Cruff. "No use trying to shush me, Adam Cruff. You'll tell 'em what we saw." Her husband cleared his throat. "I didn't rightly see it myself," he apologized, "but there's some as saw that big yeller cat of her coming a running out of the house. Couple of fellers took a shot at it, but the ones as got a good look claims it had a great fat mouse in its mouth, and it never let go, even when the bullets came after it. His wife drew a hissing breath. That mouse was Hannah Tupper. 'Tis not the first time she's changed herself into a creature. They say when the moon is full. Now hold on a minute, Matthew, cautioned the constable at Matthew's scornful gesture. You can't gainsay it. There's things happen we better not look at too close. The woman's gone, and I say good riddance. She's gone straight back to Satan, pronounced Goodwife Croft, but she's left another to do her work. Kit could have laughed out loud, but a look at Goodwife Croft sobered her. The woman's eyes were fastened on her face with cunning triumph. They found some when they searched her place. Better take a look at this, Matthew. The constable drew something shiny from his pocket. It was the little silver horn book. What is it? Asked Matthew. Looks like some sort of horn book. Who ever saw a little horn book like that? Demanded Goodman Croft. 'Tis the devil's own writing. Has the Lord's Prayer on it. The constable reminded him. Look at the letters on the handle, Matthew. Matthew took the thing in his hands and reluctantly turned it over. Ask her where it came from, jibbed Goodwife Croft, unable to keep silent. There was a harsh gasp from Rachel. Matthew lifted his eye from the horn book to his niece's white face. Can this be yours, Catherine? He asked. Kit's lips were stiff. Yes, sir, she answered faintly. Did you know you had lost it? Was it stolen from you? No, sir. I knew it was there. I took it there myself. Why? Kit looked from one grim waiting face to another. Did they know about Prudence? If not, she must be very careful. It was a sort of present, she said lamely. A present to the widow? Not exactly. You mean she had some sort of hold on you? Some blackmail? Oh no, Hannah was a friend of mine. I'm sorry, Uncle Matthew. I meant to tell you. Truly, I did, as soon as I could. I used to go and see her on the way home from the meadow. Sometimes I took things to her. My own things, I mean. Poor Rachel. How that apple tart must be torturing her conscience. I don't understand this, Catherine. I forbade you. You understood it perfectly. To go to that woman's house. I know, but Hannah needed me, and I needed her. She wasn't a witch, Uncle Matthew. If only have you known her. Matthew looked back at the constable. I am chagrined, he said with dignity, that I have not controlled my own household. But this girl is young and ignorant. I hold myself blamed for the laxness. Take no blame to yourself, Matthew. The constable rose to his feet. I'm sorry with your daughter sick and all, but we've got to lock this girl up. Oh no, burst Rachel. You can't let them, Matthew. Since when, asked Matthew, his eyes flashing, do you lock up a girl for disobedience? That is for me to settle, not disobedience. This girl is charged with witchcraft. That is ridiculous, thundered Matthew. Watch your words, man. This girl has admitted to being a friend to a witch, and there is a complaint against her made according to law and signed. Who dared sign such a thing? I signed it, shouted Goodman Croft. The girl put a spell on half the children in this town, and I'll see her brought into court if it is the last thing I do. Matthew looked defeated. Where do you aim to take her? He asked. Shed. Back of my place will do. There's no proper jail of sort in Hartford, but I've lost near a day's work already. Wait a minute. How long do you intend on keeping her? Till the trial. When Sam Salcott gets back tomorrow, he'll likely examine her with the minister's presence. That's what they did to Goody Harrison and Johnson woman. Between 20 years since we had which case hereabouts, reckon there'll be a jury trial in Hartford. Suppose I give you my word until Captain Talcott returns. I'll keep her locked in her room upstairs. What good is his word? Demanded Goodwife Croft. Has he known where she was these past months? She wants to see me in jail, Kit thought. She felt numbed by the hatred in this woman's eyes. I trust you all right, the constable considered. But they some I don't trust. They was out they was out of their minds down there last night. One more death in this town, and I won't be responsible for what happens. This girl will be safe with me. What that I warrant." Rachel started forward, but Matthew motioned her back. "Get her coat," he ordered. They stood waiting silent in the hallway while Rachel climbed the stairs, weeping, and came back with her own woolen cloak. "Yours feels damp," she quavered. Keep this on you, Kit. It may be cold in that place." The Crufts walked behind them and all the way along High Street down Carpenter's Lane to the constable's house, and stood by till they saw Kit safely in the shed and heard their own ears the heavy bolt drop in place outside the door. The shed was entirely empty, save for a pile of straw in one corner of the dirty floor. There was no window, but the rough boards let the chinks of daylight in as well as the draughts of November air. Kit leaned against the door spot and let the tears run down her cheeks. Towards late afternoon, when one side of the shed was already deep in shadows, she heard footsteps. The bolt drew back, and the constable's face appeared through the door. "Brought some supper," he growled, "and my wife sent this." He thrust towards her a heavy kilt, none too clean in the dim light, but a gesture of kindness nonetheless. "We never had a girl in here before," he explained uneasily. "Funny thing, I've never picked for you for a witch, but you can't tell." "Please," Kit ventured, "those other women you spoke of, Goody Harrison and the other, what happened to them?" "Goody Harrison was banished from the colony. They hanged Goody Johnson." Then, seeing the horror that blanched her face, he reconsidered. "I hardly think they're going to be so hard on you," he consoled her, "being you're so young, and the first offense. More likely brand you or cut off your ear." He slammed shut the door again. Whatever might be in the wooden bowl, she had no heart even to taste it. She had begun to shake again, and the kilt did not warm her. She had never in all her life known the feeling of a locked door. It was all she could do to hold herself from pounding against it and screaming. If she could scream, who would hear her? Who was there anywhere who could help her? John Holbrook, perhaps, in his quiet way, he had a sort of strength and conviction. They might have listened to John, but he was far away in the wilderness of Massachusetts. Nat Eden? He was halfway down the river and banished from the town as well. William? Why, of course! William could help her. Why hadn't she thought of him at once? Anything William said would carry weight in this town. His position, his character were unquestioned. Could the magistrate for one moment hold the Crufts' word against a man like William? The thought steadied her. She thought of him coming to champion her, confident, unruffled, those wide dependable shoulders like a fortress between her and her angry face of Goodwife Cruft. Dear dependable William, perhaps he would come tonight. Kit drew a deep breath, and sitting on the floor, her knees drawn tight against her chest, she waited for William. It was Rachel who finally came instead. Long after dark, Kit heard her whisper outside of the shed wall, so timid and faint that she thought she might have imagined it. "Kit, can you hear me? Are you all right?" "Yes. Oh, Aunt Rachel, you shouldn't have left them. I had to know how you are. I knew you'd want to know, Kit. Dr. Buckley said Mercy's fever is nearly gone. I'm so glad. I wanted to help, and now I'm left it all for you to do. Oh, Aunt Rachel, can you ever forgive me?" "Shush, child. 'Tis myself I can't forgive. To think I knew all along you were going to that place, and I never spoke up. I'd have kept going anyway, but I knew I'd shame you all. But I never knew I'd shame you all like this, Aunt Rachel. What do they do to witches?" There was a small sound outside the boards. Nothing, child," whispered Rachel. "They won't do anything to you." "We'll think of something," but she had not spoken fast enough. That little sobbing catch of breath had answered first. "The inquiry will be in the morning. Have courage, dear, but you've got to help us, Kit. If there's something you haven't told, something you're holding back, you must tell everything." How much courage must it have taken for Rachel to brave her husband's anger, and the dark and the strange terror of the prison shed. "I wish I could get some food in on you. Are you very frightened, Kit, dear?" "Not now," lied Kit. "Not now that you've come. Thank you, Aunt Rachel." Sustained by her aunt's visit, Kit was able to face the morrow with less panic. She sat down and forced herself to take the stock of her chances. She couldn't imagine that they could have much evidence against her, but it didn't seem to take much evidence to rouse these people's suspicions. What had poor Hannah ever done to them? Goodwife Cruff had hated her ever since the first day on the Dolphin, and she would never rest now till she had her vengeance. Nobody in the town would have much sympathy for a disobedient girl. If only she could have obeyed her impulse this morning and told her uncle the whole story. Though perhaps he too was helpless, she saw now that she was undetermined, his authority in all eyes by flouting his orders. Suppose they discovered that Prudence too had disobeyed. It did not bear thinking, and she was entirely responsible for Prudence's actions. Kit admitted with a sick heart, who had inveigled the child with promises, and though one hiding place under the willow tree, and persuaded her, no, dragged her against her will, to meet Hannah? Oh, why hadn't she seen what she was doing? How could she have been so wicked? What difference did it make whether Prudence could read or not, whether she was half-starved and beaten and overworked? If I wanted to neglect my own work, Kit groaned in remorse, I might have at least have been out in the Crufts' field helping the poor child. And yet, how lovely it had been, that last afternoon in the cabin. Leaning her forehead on her knees, Kit could almost feel herself there again. She could hear the crackling of the flames, the bubbling of the stew in the kettle, the scratching of the pen in Prudence's fingers, the creak of Hannah's chair, and the drowsy purring of the yellow cat. She could see the glow in the fire, but she could not feel its warmth. It was like gazing in at a window, from the cold outside, at a forbidden room she could never enter again. She had not slept all night before on the beach. Now huddled inside her ragged kilt, she was sucked down in spite of herself into a black whirlpool of slumber, where nightmare phantoms whirled with her nearer and nearer towards some unknown horror. So that was the end of chapter 8. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry if I made any mistakes while reading, but I hope you enjoy and you read the next chapter. Thank you.